Now, for more on the Nice attacks, journalist Ivan Broadhead joins me live via Skype from Paris. Good evening, Ivan. Yes, now first start by just giving us an update on particularly the driver and his family.
Well, in the last hour, Vincent, the 19-ton truck which the perpetrator, Mohamed Boulel, used to plough down so many innocent victims on the Promenade des Anglais in Nice has been removed from the streets. Furthermore, the Justice Ministry has confirmed that Boulel's wife, Hadja Kafala, has also been taken into custody and has been talking to police throughout the day. She confirms that he was an abusive husband, that they had 3 children together. And in further revelations, it appears that the perpetrator had permission to live in France for at least 10 years, but was born in Tunisia, in Sousse, the beachside town where another massacre occurred last year in 2015 when 30 tourists were killed.
I know it's a bit early, but would this perhaps imply that it may not necessarily be related to a terrorist organization, that perhaps this is an individual who was taking out his anger and frustration on innocent civilians?
Well, I think that is the question that is certainly being asked tonight, Vincent. President Hollande spoke to the nation today, and he was very categorical and specific that this was a terrorist attack by nature. The question now is whether or not Boulel was part of a terrorist cell, whether he was acting alone perhaps, or indeed whether he was just an individual man going through psychological problems due to the breakdown of his marriage. And of course, those questions will be answered in the coming days, weeks and months.
A terrible, terrible thing indeed there. But we hear that among those who were killed are children, young children.
That's correct. The public prosecutor has announced this evening, or has confirmed this evening, that 84 people are dead. 202 people are still injured. Francois Hollande, the president, confirmed that at least 50 of those were in a state he defined as between life and death. But it does indeed appear that at least 10 of the victims, 10 of the fatalities are indeed children. And talking to people who were there, speaking to sources in Nice, it appears that as the truck drove down the road, down the Promenade des Anglais, this 7-kilometre-long path along the seafront, a lot of the children weren't actually hit by the truck. They were actually crushed by the crowds as they attempted to disperse out of the way of the vehicle.
That's horrendous. Now, Ivan, this is coming soon after another terrible attack in France. It's been like so frequent right now. What are people in France saying? How is this impacting the society?
Well, waking up this morning, I think there is a sense of absolute saturation. This is the 3rd massacre in France, as you correctly point out, in the last 18 months. Yesterday, President Francois Hollande actually announced that he was bringing to an end a state of emergency that has existed in the country since January 2015, since the Charlie Hebdo attacks, and that he was going to wind down the number of police and soldiers on the streets of Paris and the country from 10,000 to 7,000. Of course, that's now become, that's now become an impossibility. And as well as the people on the streets trying to fathom just why France is constantly, it appears, the victim of these attacks, the president faces a much more real difficulty in the sense of promoting and boosting morale amongst his security forces. There's a lot of criticism today that the intelligence services have failed the country. The police service is absolutely exhausted by rolling public protests and strikes in the country. The French army has been on the ground in the Sahel for several years now, and its numbers are depleted and stretched. So just how France deals with this issue and what Francois Hollande does to change the dynamic on the ground is a big question to the people of this country.
And of course, sometimes France has come under criticism for not having very thorough checks, perhaps background checks on people who are suspected to be having links with terrorists. But how complex is the issue, especially when you consider that most of those who've committed these crimes are actually French citizens?
Well, that's true, and I think it's been interesting today to observe this knee-jerk reaction, particularly amongst the right wing of the political elite here. There were calls for the borders to be sealed. Marine Le Pen, the head of the right-wing National Front, has said that a war must be conducted against jihadism. Alain Juppé, another former prime minister, has said that not enough is being done to tackle the threat of terrorism. But he seems to define that as an external threat, which, of course, as you correctly point out, a lot of these terrorists, radicalized people, are legally living inside France. And it is a great problem. France has more radicalized young jihadis than any other nation in Europe. There really is, I mean, there's an existential crisis. Yesterday, the 14th of July, Bastille Day, represents everything. It's a celebration of everything that is great about France, the principles, the tenets of the nation, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Just how are young men, in particular young Muslim men, brought in within those notions and ideals of the state?
Well, Ivan, thank you very much for your reporting.
You're welcome.
That is Ivan Broadhead reporting live via Skype from Paris.